Let's get some more analysis now on these talks and how Ukraine views them and what they might achieve. Well, we can speak to Kira Rudik, who's an MP in the Ukrainian parliament, a leader of the Holos party. Great to have you with us on Arabiya News once again. First of all, will Ukraine accept a peace deal that is struck without Ukraine's involvement?
Hello, Tom, and thank you so much for having me. No, Ukraine will not accept any deals, and we have been very clear together with our allies that nothing about Ukraine without Ukraine. And given that we have such a massive army that is fighting, having Ukraine's nation behind it, it doesn't seem realistic that there could be something that will be just given or thrown at us and that Ukrainian nation will accept.
And in terms of what the terms of the deal might be, I mean, Moscow's saying it's not prepared to give up any land. President Trump has already said that Ukraine's not going to be joining NATO. I mean, what concessions might you expect President Trump to extract from the Russians?
Well, for us, it's not even about concessions, but the main thing that should come to make any kind of deal is the security guarantee. This is the baseline, and this is absolutely critical. This is why we are not taking seriously any discussions right now, because they are not based on the security guarantees that are needed. Tom, we here in Ukraine have been in so-called ceasefire deal with Russia since 2014. And I can tell you that there was not a single day when Russia would honor this deal and would not be attacking our soldiers at the front line. So right now, the question that Ukrainian people are asking is how this new deal will be any different. And that's why we need an understanding of how it will be secured and basically who or what in the whole world can make sure that Putin will keep his part of the bargain. As of right now, we have not seen any proposals that would answer this simple particular question.
So how do you feel about President Trump and President Putin speaking on the telephone, getting to this stage of some sort of negotiations? I mean, do you think that he will be able to strike a good deal for Ukraine?
I think, again, that any good deal for Ukraine would start with understanding how it will work further and how the security guarantees would work. The truth is that these security guarantees would be unpleasant for our allies, because it's either taking Ukraine into NATO or sending international forces here, or assuring that if Russia will break the deal, then somebody will go into full-scale war with them. So before this situation is resolved about how would you guarantee that, I think all the calls and talks and statements, they are just preparative, I would say. And if I may, we have heard many controversial statements from Donald Trump's team, including things that he himself said, what the Secretary of Defense said, and what Vice President J.D. Vance said about Ukraine. And these things, they don't really match too well together. This is why I think we should wait until the real proposal is on the table.
I mean, do you believe that, I mean, we've heard President Zelensky saying he hopes President Trump's negotiating in good faith. I mean, everyone hopes that. But do you think that President Trump does have Ukraine's best interests at heart?
Well, I think Donald Trump has America's best interest at heart. And that I truly believe. And nobody should have Ukraine's best interest at heart because our president should do that. But we understand that Donald Trump made a promise to American people to end the war in Ukraine. And he is right now simply going on with trying to deliver on that promise to American people. However, I think we all need to understand what's at stake here. And at stake here is a precedent that in 21st century, one country can annex a territory of another one, commit all kinds of the war crimes, and then get away with that. And this, I think, Donald Trump, as someone who wants to be perceived as a strong leader, does not want to be a precedent that's happening under his rule.
We heard President Zelensky speaking to NBC during the weekend, and he said that President Putin was a liar and not to be trusted. But he said that he thought President Putin was perhaps scared of President Trump. Do you think that's accurate, or do you think perhaps President Trump is afraid of President Putin?
Well, it's very hard to say right now who is afraid of whom. But what I totally can agree with President Zelensky on is that Putin is a liar. And again, we are saying this not because he has attacked our country, but because we know for a fact, and we are able to confirm these facts with contradiction with the facts. So starting from 2014 and then in 2022, then with all the massacres that happened in Bucha, which Putin said that never happened, etc., etc. So I think we should be very careful about the idea that any peace deal or a ceasefire deal would stick. Another important point, Tom, is that right now the war is very different, and I'm not sure that all our allies realize how different it is. This is the war of drones. This is the war of missiles. It's not just people on the ground fighting each other like in First or Second World War. It's very different, and this is why it will be very hard to assure that Russia stopped attacking us, especially with the drones and missiles and other things that will be very hard to monitor.
Indeed, and you know what we're being told is that Moscow is making some gains on the battlefield. There have been fresh reports of that even today, and probably that's boosting Moscow as it goes into these negotiations. I just want to ask you though, what do you make of President Trump's negotiating style and negotiating techniques?
Well, you know, for the sake of Ukrainian people, I really want to hope that it would work, because at the end, the history will remember the result, right? Right now, Donald Trump perceived as an unpredictable negotiator and person who wants to be perceived as a strong leader. Well, whatever works on stopping the massacres and stopping the deaths of Ukrainian people and assuring a long-term peace, we would support. However, again, I think we should be very careful not to trust Putin and Russia's lies, because they can be very tricky, especially when they would say that it was not them. They will deny their responsibility, same as they have done for many years after they have taken down the MH17 plane that Russia has taken, or right now when they have taken down the plane of Azerbaijan Airlines. So I think we are talking about more complex picture here, and it would not be Putin trusts Trump, Trump trusts Putin. It would be actually on making sure that it would work.
I just wonder how people in Ukraine and Kyiv are taking all of this in. I mean, a lot to think about. Morale presumably quite low, given that you know, there have been these setbacks on the battlefield. This small settlement in northeastern Ukraine was captured today. An area of western Kursk has been taken back by the Russians. I mean, is society split in Ukraine, or on the whole, would you say people are heartened by the negotiations? What is the national mood?
Well, people are, of course, concerned, especially because we have heard over the last 5 days many different statements from many people from Donald Trump's team. Our mutual understanding is the following, and we have seen it with the different world leaders. You cannot be talking about Ukraine before you come here, see what Russia has committed, and understand what the war is. And this is why we were waiting for the special envoy, Keith Kellogg, to be coming to Kyiv before even any negotiations would start. And this is why we are waiting for him to come this week, to look people in the eyes, to see how it is on the ground, to spend a couple of hours in a bomb shelter when Russia launches yet another attack. And there is another very important thing, Tom, that people here on the ground are being concerned, is that just a couple of days ago, Russia launched a drone onto the Chernobyl nuclear plant, something that no one in their sane mind would do. Children in Ukraine know that you don't mess with the nuclear power. And still we see Russia attacking the nuclear plant, to send the world a message. And we are very much concerned about this because we have been through Chernobyl tragedy, and we know that that radiation doesn't care which passport you are holding and are you a member of NATO or not. This is why it is really serious concern that I think should be addressed first is arming Ukraine in terms of air defense, so we would be able to protect ourselves and Europe from potential attacks on the nuclear plants.
Now, Kira, you've had to live with attacks on your country for nearly 3 years now. You've even seen your own home hit by explosives. You once said in an interview that if President Putin was standing in front of you, you would shoot him. And I'm just wondering what emotions, what goes through your mind when you hear that the US and Russia are trying to strike a deal?
I would say that I'm just Ukrainian, right? It's not only about me. It's about so many people who suffered and lost the most in this war, who have seen their relatives being captured and then don't know what happened with them. People who have seen their kids taken from them and then kidnapped into Russia. And people who have seen their children coming back in the coffins. So of course, it's very painful for us. And people from my constituency were asking me this question: what did we do wrong? Right, we are fighting for ability to live in our own country with this aggressive neighbor. We are fighting for our ability to define our own future. We are fighting because we are a democracy that just wants to stand for itself. And we are a democracy that has given up our nuclear arsenal in 1994 for the promises that United States, United Kingdom, and Russia will support our territorial integrity. So the question is, what did we do wrong in the world's face that right now we do not deserve for everyone to be standing behind our back and supporting us to the point that we can push Russia back from our territories? And I do not have an answer to that. But I'm sure that after all this noise from different statements comes down, we will come down to this main question of how do we want to live in this world? What is the world that we want to build? Is it the world where is a power of law or the law of power? And I think it is right now in hands of Donald Trump to define that alongside with European leaders. And I really hope that he makes the right choice.
As we speak, European leaders have been gathering in Paris. EU leaders are there. The NATO Secretary General is there. Why do you think Moscow doesn't want European leaders at the negotiating table?
Well, that's very obvious because Europe behind Ukraine is strengthening Ukraine, and Moscow just wants to go back to a bipolar world. Putin is dreaming of restoring Soviet Union. He was very vocal about that. And did anyone care about Europe at the time of Soviet Union? No, it was just like a map on the table, right? Right now, when European Union and together with the United Kingdom is the real powerhouse, of course, Moscow wouldn't want to see them. But President Zelensky said many times, and I support that it is only possible to sit at the table with Putin if we have the United States and Europe behind us at this table.
And that's not happening. So, I mean, and one of the other things I wanted to ask you about is this notion that's been put forward by some countries, notably the UK, about having peacekeeping forces on the ground after an eventual peace deal is struck. Do you see that as being a workable solution? And if so, who would those peacekeepers be?
Well, the main question is not about peacekeepers. The main question is what would happen if Russian drone will kill one of the peacekeepers and how this country would react. And this is a question that I would ask at this gathering that is happening right now of the European leaders. We appreciate you sending peacekeepers here, but are you ready to go to war if your peacekeepers will be killed by Russia? Because that's the main question, right? Not about having certain forces here. And then there is a question, are you sending peacekeepers with the weapons or are you sending them alone? And if you're sending them with the weapons, perhaps you can send those weapons earlier, because I will say it once again, Ukraine never asked for international forces here. We said what we are asking for is to have the weapons, the means to fight back. We understand that it is our own responsibility to fight for our motherland. And we have been doing this. And I think nobody would oppose that Ukrainian armed forces were brilliant at what they were able to achieve with the limited resources that they had. And right now, we still did not receive enough of the weapons that we were asking, or even enough of the weapons that were promised. So that is the key right now. And having the peace forces here, great, fantastic. Are you sending them with the weapons? Perhaps maybe you can send the weapons first, because we will have the best usage of it.
Just lastly, I mean, President Trump said on the campaign trail he could end the war with a single phone call. That hasn't happened, but he has made this a top priority. The Trump administration isn't even a month old, and already, we are seeing action with regards to bringing about a conclusion to this. Lastly, do you trust Donald Trump to strike a deal that is acceptable to Ukraine?
The truth is we do not know. And we know that the main goal of Donald Trump right now is try to break the alliance between Russia and China, because China, with his words, is the key adversary of the United States. And Ukraine falls up onto the bigger strategy of how the world would work, given that interest of the United States lies, first of all, in the Indo-Pacific region and less in Europe. And again, we do not know what's going to happen. We know that we are going to fight for our future same way as we were fighting in 2022, when there was nobody behind us. At the first day of the wars, everybody was thinking that we will go down in 2 or 3 days. You remember that, Tom, right? And so right now, we know that we could be left in the situation exactly like that, and it doesn't change our plans. And our plan is to fight for our country. However, if there is a viable peace deal at the table, I think Ukraine will consider that, because we want to end this war more than anybody in the world. However, we want it to work. We cannot have this peace deal that will only be called peace deal, and at the end would be just giving Russia chance to regroup, retrain, continue producing weapons and supplies, and then attack us again. And not only Ukraine, but any other countries. If the peace deal is not stopping Russia, China, Iran, and North Korea from producing weapons, then the war will come back, and not only to Ukraine, but to other places on the map.
Okay, we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you very much indeed for your time. Kira Rudik, MP in the Ukrainian Parliament. Thanks again.
Thank you, and glory to Ukraine.